Substantiate, to establish by proof or competent evidence. Welcome back to Substantiate. I'm the host, William Glasser, bringing you hypothetical sports matchups every single week. Welcome back to Substantiate, or if it's your first time tuning in, thanks for clicking on us and listening today. Now, today I have a special guest that I've honestly thought about as a hopeful guest, basically since I created this podcast, and I've mentioned him a couple times on past episodes. He inspired basically the whole concept of this podcast with an episode from his podcast, Locked On Lakers, and that person that I'm talking about, of course, is Anthony Irwin. He is a great person. He is a great podcast host. He knows what he's talking about when it comes to the Lakers, and so today we are talking about what if all-time Lakers played some sort of pickup flag football, like backyard football. It is a really fun episode, and here there's some players that, depending on how familiar you are with different eras of basketball or how much you follow the NBA today, that you may not know as well. So if you want to scroll down to the bottom of the show notes, there's going to be a list of players that each Anthony and I draft, and there, those names will be hyperlinked to their basketball reference pages. So if you just want to see a picture, get to know what they look like, see some stats, to add some context to this, you could do that while listening to this episode. So you can go check that out. And also, in last week's episode, I started posting some more video clips on Instagram with Instagram Reels, and maybe I'll put some on Instagram TV, IGTV also. So those are other cool ways if you want to see me and Anthony talk with some highlights and clips from today's episode. And of course, you can watch those at Substantiate Pod on Instagram. Also, while you're there, you might as well give us a follow. And same thing on Facebook and Twitter at Substantiate Pod. And yeah, so also, while you're on one of those social medias, you can send me either with a DM or to substantiatepod@gmail.com. You can send me a question, and probably sometime in April, I'll do some sort of mailbag episode and try to answer any of those questions. You can ask about my favorite sports teams, my thoughts on sports, really anything about me, about some previous episodes, and yeah, so, you know, if you were directed over here from Anthony, definitely, I think you'll really enjoy this podcast. If you like listening to Locked On Lakers, then it's not the same form of entertainment here, but definitely worth a listen each week. So every Wednesday, new hypothetical sports matchup. Go check out the entire back catalog, either wherever you listen to podcasts or in our website, www.substantiatepod.com. So you can go check that out. And then also, seriously, if you enjoyed this episode, please really consider either sharing it with word of mouth with a friend or in a text message, or go hit that share button wherever that may be, depending on what app or website you're watching this on. Go send it to someone, and that's really the best way for a podcast to grow. You know, there's all these different forms, but really the best way to grow a podcast is to get some word of mouth marketing. So if you guys, my listeners, if you could go and tell a friend or two, or more than two if you want to, about this podcast and how much you hopefully do enjoy listening to it, then go do that. And if you post on Instagram or Twitter, I'll retweet or repost that, so long as you tag at Substantiate Pod. So that's always great. And while you're at it, if you feel like it, then you can drop us a rating or review on Apple Podcasts or Podchaser. And yeah, and again, thanks for listening every week. I had a sort of podcast reflection / fan appreciation episode a couple weeks ago now, so you can listen to that if you haven't already. And yeah, try to tell a friend about the podcast and send in some mailbag questions. So without further ado, let's get into this amazing episode with Anthony Irwin. Today, I am here with Anthony Irwin from the Locked On Lakers podcast and Silver Screen and Roll podcast. How are you today, Anthony?
Can't complain. It's actually a little warmer out here. When we were getting ready to get going, you asked for video, and I was the sun's out, so the guns were kind of out. So I was since I was working in the garage, and it's actually like almost 90 degrees outside. Wow. Nobody needed to see that though.
Yeah. And if you want to see some of those video clips, check out Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And depending on what time of day you're listening, they might be up. Anyway, so now, Anthony, here's a quick question just so the listeners can get to know you a little bit better. So if you could have dinner with any person, sports, non-sports, past, present, who would it be?
Man, that's a tough one. I mean, if it's sports, it's probably Kobe. You know, if I could, are we counting alive or dead?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyone.
So yes. So if it's sports, it's probably Kobe. I would have a lot of questions about, being a girl dad myself, the transition from the hyper masculine world of playing sports to the different and very cool relationship that a father has with his daughters. So that'd be where I would go for sports. Non-sports, man, I guess it'd be like an author for, whether it's George R.R. Martin or actually George R.R. Martin would be good. And is this person going to be completely truthful? Because if they're completely truthful and I would get to ask George R.R. Martin how angry he was about what they did to his story in the final season of Game of Thrones, then that's where I would go.
Okay, I'm sure some of my audience will understand that. So anyway, going on to today's topic, which is going to be all-time Lakers playing some sort of football, flag football, nothing too serious, but some offense and defense matchups. So we didn't really come into this with pre-existing teams. So, Anthony, do we want to draft teams of maybe 5 players or so?
Works for me. Yeah, you got a quarterback and 2 wide receivers on either side. That sounds like fun.
Yep. All right. So, would you like to go with the first pick?
Sure. I'll take LeBron. I think he's infatuated right now. They do it before every game where they have everybody line up and he throws a corner route to, usually it was Anthony Davis before he got hurt. LeBron was actually, when he was getting ready to go to college, and then eventually he decided to skip that, obviously, and go to pro in basketball. He was the number 2 prospect for football too. So he was obviously the number 1 prospect heading to college in basketball. And I think he was number 2 in football as a wide receiver / tight end. And that would have been, the fact that he can throw as well as he can and then can also catch basically anything would be, he'd be the best player on the field.
Yeah, and I guess it was probably less than a month ago, it was in the sports news a little bit, him saying that he could have been like a Cowboys wide receiver or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure if at any point in I know during the lockout, he was kind of flirting with the Cowboys a little bit, and that would have been fun. It would have been terrifying for a number of reasons, but it would have been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, if he did that, what that says about the NBA, what it says about basketball, that the top 2 players of all time both would have left and gone to a different sport.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could look at it that way, but I think another way to look at it is NBA players are such incredible athletes that they have the opportunity to do that, right? Like Jack Nicklaus was probably not going to go out and play wide receiver for the Cowboys, right? So golfers don't really have that as an option. In basketball, though, one of the most heated arguments I think I've ever gotten on Twitter, or one of the angriest people ever got at me, was when I said that I think NBA players are the best athletes in the world. People seem to think that football players deserve a spot in that discussion. They do, but I just think when it comes to skill and physicality and just overall athleticism, a basketball player is pretty tough to beat.
Yeah, and so staying a little bit along that with my first pick. Now, like, at first I'm thinking, right, go someone that's big that can just get the few yards each time, eventually get the first down, work your way down the field. But then I'm also thinking there's way too many big guys for that to be effective.
Right.
So, between Kareem or Shaq or anyone, they're all big. So I'm going to go with another star, which is going to be Kobe. I think he's not exactly the athlete that LeBron is, but Kobe obviously has the Mamba mentality, the work ethic, and a great leader like LeBron is also, but slightly different ways. And I think that Kobe can also be a more versatile player because he's not the biggest. So, for example, if you did have Shaq on your team, well, he kind of only has one position there. And Kobe, like LeBron in that sense, seems like a good number too.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with all these guys, right, is if you were to put LeBron or Kobe in the NFL, both those guys are immediately like two of the tallest players in the league. So both guys are pretty good options as wide receivers for corner routes and stuff like that. So that'd be Kobe's a good pick. And also, I think to play football, you have to be kind of a crazy person, like, and just willing to risk your body the way that you have to in that sport. And Kobe's as tough as they come.
Yeah.
Are you going two picks? Are we going snake draft here?
Well, let's just go back and forth.
All right. So my next pick, I'm going to go James Worthy on the outside as like there was very few players in the during the Showtime era who could keep up with the pace that Magic Johnson was pushing. And he could fill a lane. He could catch really well because you always had to be able to catch passes coming from all over the place with Magic as your point guard there. So I would have Worthy on my opposite of LeBron on the far out wide out spots.
Now, if you were to compare Magic to LeBron, which isn't a perfect one-to-one comparison, but how would you see these two playing together on a football field?
On a football field, are they on the same team?
Yes, because you just drafted them.
No, I drafted Worthy. I drafted James Worthy.
Yeah, James Worthy and James Worthy and LeBron. Excuse me.
Yeah, so that's a Freudian slip on your part. You thought I was going with Magic there, but I went. I would basically have LeBron on one side and Worthy on the other side on offense, being able to go out there and catch anything on the far wide out spots. And like at that point, you could basically pick and choose who you want as your quarterback there. So they make life pretty easy in that regard. And then also, like, both guys are such great athletes that they would be able to defend basically anybody who would line, because we're playing flag football, right? So it's just 5-on-5, like backyard style football. So you have your wide receiver has to go and play cornerback, and both guys are able to go out there and do that kind of a thing pretty well, I think.
Yeah, that's a good point. Again, like, obviously all of these are great athletes, but yeah, especially when you pull from a team with Magic, and like you were saying, just such a more fast-paced game, and that definitely suits his strengths.
Mm-hmm.
All right, with my second pick, I am... This one's tougher. It seems like Kobe may have been a little more obvious, but to go against him, I'm going to go with Magic, who I think...
Who is actually available.
Yes, he is. Yeah, again, fast-paced, can put up with both sides, and having Kobe and Magic working together, which, while Magic was in the Lakers front office, was... it's obviously not the same as if they were teammates, but I think that they'll be able to work together, that they both have a selflessness side to them, that they can be able to work things out on offense, whether it's just fun, different trick plays because it's flag football and why not, or what else. And I think the teamwork would be very strong.
So you have Magic as your quarterback in this one?
Yeah, I'll put him at quarterback.
Yeah, he'd be all right. I'm gonna go ahead and say that he'd he'd be a pretty good. I've never seen Magic throw a football, but yeah, I'm sure if we're just taking for granted that all of these guys are able to do these things, right? So
Yeah.
so if we're taking that for granted, I could see Magic being a really good quarterback.
Yeah. Again, like you were saying, all of these, we're just assuming that they can. And, if they could pull off short shorts in the 80s, then they can throw a football.
They're coming back. It's been crazy to see that trend come back. The Lakers played that one game where they played with the retro jerseys and all the guys were wearing the super short shorts and it was funny in that game too because they're all wearing these super short shorts and they're tugging at them the whole game. And then they did away with them at the second half. They were just like, no, we're done with this. And in the game that they were playing, they wind up playing significantly better in the second half when they weren't all fiddling with their shorts the whole time.
Amazing.
Yeah. All right. So my next pick here, I'm going to go with Alex Caruso as like a Wes Welker kind of inside receiver and my little slot receiver who could.
You'll have to see it.
Yeah. So I got the bald eagle on the inside there, and I like. And by the way, like Alex Caruso is 100% okay with setting those illegal screens that they set for wide receivers and getting other guys open. He's 1,000,000,000% going to do that probably once a drive for me.
All right. Playing a little dirty, no refs out here.
Hey man, if you're not cheating, you're not trying.
Yeah, I mean, if you make that argument, then Kobe's morals might. But
your next pick is going to be Shaq specifically to set those giant screens. Are we playing flag or are we playing tackle? We're playing flag, right? Because if we're playing tackle, then Shaq should have gone first. Nobody's tackling that dude.
Yeah, just like a tank, just plowing his way downfield.
Right, Refrigerator Perry all over again.
In Caruso, like, he works very well with LeBron. And second of all, he is, again, like extremely strong. Like after the finals, when there were the pictures of him without a shirt on, like that is not what I was expecting.
Yeah. Also, by the way, like a really good defender. So
yeah,
whoever is, on the opposite side of him trying to play a wide receiver against him.
The opposite of him is Shaq, by the way.
Right. Well, so you're drafting Shaq here. All right, man. All right, Alex, suit up. You got this, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, you got to match him. Illegal screen.
Right,
but
yeah.
Then the question begs to be asked, how well is Caruso's screen against Shaq?
Yeah, well, technically, he's setting a screen against... Who did you draft? So he's setting setting a screen against like Kobe, right? If we're just going straight cross matchups.
Well, that's a good athletic matchup.
Yeah, like he's just getting in his way long enough for LeBron to get open, and then you're hoping that Shaq can keep up speed wise with some of the other guys on the field, and that's where he might like one of the toughest things to watch when I was hell about your age, I think. Was during Shaq's heyday, even while he was the most dominating presence on the field, he couldn't keep up with basically anybody who was running a pick and roll against him. So that would be where I think Shaq is kind of an awkward pick. But everywhere else and anything that has to do with physicality, he's just a monster. So good luck.
I mean, like I'll play as the 0001 Lakers team in 2K, and like I have some insane highlights of Shaq.
Right. Yeah.
That's even just in 2K.
They used to, I forget, I haven't played 2K in years, but they used to have the setting where like strength showed up the most in a player's ability to back another player down.
Yeah.
Right. And
definitely.
Shaq
Still
was the only 99 in strength in the game. And so it didn't matter who he was going against. This poor dude who was trying to keep Shaq out of the paint was just, it was like me pushing on the Titanic. It was just not going to happen.
Yeah. It's like either Shaq is a 99 and no one else is even near, or Shaq is like a 200. So,
right. Well, I mean, everything only goes up to 99. So everybody else was like, he was a 99. And if we were going by actual math, like the closest person to him would probably be like a 80, maybe an 85. I don't even know who that
Who's
would
broken more backboards?
be. Right. Both with free throws and with dunks.
Yeah, bricks flying everywhere.
So you drafted Shaq. So it's my pick, my fourth player here. I should probably draft a quarterback at some point. And I'm gonna go with kind of off the board one here. Lonzo's gonna be my quarterback.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Lonzo Ball because quarterback, like in tag football, unless you go to the player that's going up against him is actually going to try to blitz on 7 Mississippi or something like that. For the most part, your quarterback doesn't need to be, a super athlete, doesn't need to be that great in that regard. And then once if they are rushed like that, if there is kind of a blitz element to the game, and that's the only instance where your quarterback is allowed to run, well then good luck, with all of those other guys who were trying to pay attention to whoever they were guarding down the field. Good luck turning your head and having enough time to now catch Lonzo Ball, who's in full sprint. So,
yeah.
And like my favorite thing, probably the only good thing that I really recall about Lonzo's game was how great he was at being able to scan the field quickly and make the right pass in a very quick manner. And so that's who I'm going to go with. He's going to be my quarterback.
All right. Yeah. I mean, there's pluses and minuses to that. Now,
I wonder if he throws like across his body though. So, usually the ball stays on whatever side. I'm left-handed, so the ball stays on this side. I wonder if like when he throws it, it actually comes from the opposite side of his body. That's awkward. But we're taking for granted he can throw a football.
In the NBA, they also take for granted that you can shoot a basketball. Right.
But in this case, we have like tangible evidence of what he can do as a shooter. We have never seen any of these guys other than maybe like LeBron throw a football.
Yeah, it was interesting. We did an episode about a month ago now where it was just all of the NBA players currently playing football. And it was, well, more in an NFL setting. But just looking up pictures to try to find the players holding a football, it was interesting to see which ones hadn't had football backgrounds and all that stuff. Draymond Green was the kicker, to be clear.
I'm trying to think of like what a football would even look like in Shaq's hands. Because that becomes like a can for us, right? Like it becomes like a 12-ounce can for Shaq is holding a football.
Well, okay, so then you know how like sometimes when a ball gets too small, it gets harder to catch.
It gets awkward. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Well,
although if all he's doing, right, he's just running like 5-yard turnaround. We just need to pick up the first down here, basically, right?
Yeah.
Or if we're playing real backyard rules, it was 2 completions was how I grew up. That was a first down. So if you just need a completion, you just have Shaq run out, turn around, throw the ball high enough, and hope that he can go up and get it. And I think he had good hands and he could, probably Odell a bunch of catches, to be completely honest. It's like there's no problem, no reason for him to use the second hand if the ball fits like
long as he's not falling back on anyone.
Right. Well, yeah, if it involves like any kind of a movement, Shaq's in trouble. If you're talking Lakers Shaq, if you're like early Orlando Magic Shaq, he'd be a freaking force, but we're talking Lakers Shaq and he was not quite there.
All right. Well, I guess with my next pick, I'll go with another smaller guy. I'll go with Jerry West here. So to kind of balance things out a little bit. Not that Magic is gigantic, but he was a point guard. But at the same time, I think that in a lot of ways, in this matchup, the players' heights will be an advantage, but at the same time, they're all gigantic. So, like you were saying, the smallest tier would be the biggest in the NFL. Okay, right. Well, there's a reason why NFL players are that height. So, trying to stay a little bit on the shorter side with that one, and hopefully be able to get him to mesh with the other players on my team, Kobe, Magic, and Shaq, and maybe put out any fires if they appeared. Well,
Yeah, I mean, he was good at that as the GM when he was a GM for the Lakers. So, although he wasn't particularly great at not starting fires, it's been interesting to like the further that the closer I get to people who either covered that team or worked with the Lakers at that time. There are not the best stories about Jerry West as an executive when it comes to just like being a decent coworker.
well, I'm hoping through all of this that they're just having so much fun and so much competitiveness that hopefully hopefully the common enemy will be the opponent, not their teammates. So,
Yep. So this is my final pick, right?
yes.
And you have Shaq on your team. So I should probably have somebody who just can match up with Shaq's size at this point. I'm going to go with Dwight. I'm going to go with Dwight Howard. You know, he's not obviously going to be as big as Shaq. And if he becomes about, pure physicality, that's where Dwight's going to struggle a little bit. But he's also small enough and athletic enough to where like he'd be able to move around a football field decently despite being that size. So
Yeah.
I'll go with Dwight there, and he's like my enforcer, my screen setter. Nobody on this field sets as brutal screens as Dwight. I don't think. Even Shaq, like Shaq's screen was more of like he would stand there because he didn't want to pick up a cheap foul. So he would just kind of stand there and lean on somebody and then use his ginormous long arms to just kind of suck them into the spot that they were supposed to be in. He didn't really lay people out, but we've seen some screens that Dwight Howard has set where he lays dudes out. And I think it'd be nice to have that.
Or he'll just try to rip someone's arm off.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if it becomes a dirty game, which it might with some of the guys on this field, if it just becomes like a straight up fight, then yeah, Dwight would hold his own pretty well.
Yeah, they'll need someone there to keep everything under control. The neighborhood watch or something.
Right. Yeah. We need who would even be like I just picture like Chick Hearn sitting there. It's like who's commentating, but he's also tasked with like making sure nobody dies. Or like Phil Jackson would be sitting there with Sage, like, don't kill people. Yeah.
Yeah, it calls a timeout. All right, let's take a deep breath. All right, okay.
Yep.
All right, so that was
my fifth pick. So you got one more guy to go.
So for this one, I mean, Dwight Howard is a very strong player, and I'm gonna go with someone here who's obviously a record setter, someone that, well, I mean, there's a lot of record setters on the Lakers, so I'm not being very specific, but
you got a Rolodex to choose from there.
But someone that's big and can try to match LeBron's ego in a way, and try to pick up some of the attention. And although this player that I'm thinking of doesn't have exactly the same ego, but again, he's up there in the conversations for greatest of all time, and that's going to be Kareem. So, top of the scoring list. And another player that I was immediately thinking of with record setting was Wilt Chamberlain. But anyway, gonna stick with Kareem, a big player. He'll just, I mean, what would the skyhook equivalent in football be?
I don't even know, but I have him just standing there as like the field goal posts. Because he was so tall and he had such long arms. So this is a true story. The Lakers went back to the Forum to play a exhibition game there, and this would have been this was probably almost a decade ago. And my wife and I were pulling up to the Forum. We're getting ready to park our cars, and legitimately the tallest human being I have ever seen. It is walking through there, and it's Kareem. And normally old tall people, they're kind of stooped over, and they aren't, like, literal shrinking happens for some people at certain ages, and that just didn't happen with Kareem. He's still a giant. If you see him next to the Shaqs or whatever at whatever media availabilities that they'll be at together. He's still about that height. I remember back when Bynum was when the Lakers had drafted Bynum and they had him working with Kareem back then. Kareem was taller than Bynum, like visibly taller. So I just picture him just, he could be the goalpost out there. The skyhook equivalent because it's an unstoppable thing. I don't even know what it would be. Like just a jump ball, right? Like just, he would have superhuman, like his left leg was this force of nature. Bill Walton used to say that when Kareem goes to the Hall of Fame, they should have a separate statue for Kareem's left leg because of how great it was at jumping. So yeah, if you just basically run him to the corner, let him jump off of that left leg and then catch it like as high as he possibly could, I think that'd be as unstoppable a thing as you're going to find in the sport.
Yeah, right. And I know we're sort of on the clock here and you're going to have to go soon. So in this game, what is the one or two things that's going to be the deciding factor for you?
Well, I think the Shaq and Kareem combination is going to make your team intimidating as hell, right? Like when you see them walking up to the field, you're going to be like, oh my God, that's a bunch of tall people. But I don't know how they're going to be at like keeping up with somebody who's running a route. So I think the speed and general athleticism that my team offers from top to bottom, I think is going to be kind of tough to deal with. But that said, if we're playing by purely backyard rules and it's a 2 completion first down, you could just run, short route after short route whenever you have to keep the ball moving and get down there into the end zone and just keep throwing jump balls to one side or the other. I don't really know what there would be to stop it. So it would be athleticism and speed against height and physicality and yeah, I don't really know how that turns out. I like my team a little bit more. I thought you were going to go Meta World Peace for the physicality and the bruiser element of it, but it's not going to get much more bruising than Shaq.
Yeah, and if you just like compare the players and, okay, if you put Shaq and Dwight, then who are you putting on Kareem? I mean, you could argue LeBron, but them between Kobe and Magic, someone's going to be open. Or, so... there'll be a solution and that one would there's no way that would ever happen without a brawl happening, but
well, that was always the issue with playing any kind of a backyard, or for us, we used to play, in the middle of the street kind of football, is it always turned into a fight every single time. Anytime my Mexican family would play in El Paso, it was always some kind of a scuffle at the end of the thing when it was, last touchdown wins or however long it was going. There was always some kind of a fight when it came to football. It's just a part of the game at that point. So, I mean, that might be the separating factor here is which team
who can win the fight,
literally still standing at the end of this game.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we have to give the edge to my team if I don't say so myself, but
yeah, maybe Kareem wasn't really known for fighting.
Yeah,
he was just giant. Yeah, I don't know how I mean, Kobe would actually probably literally kill somebody.
Although I think Caruso could definitely take a punch.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. But I'm trying to think of like if this was like an Anchorman fight. At the end of it, they're probably like, yeah, Kobe brought a trident to this fight and actually murdered somebody. So I think that's where that probably winds up. You probably win because
Mamba mentality.
Yeah, only Kobe would be standing after a fight between all these guys.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Anthony, thank you so much for coming on today. And, it was great to have you on to speak with a person that really inspired this whole concept for this podcast and what this has been since last August. So thanks.
Thanks for having me, and I'm sorry for inspiring you and getting you into the podcasting game. It can get brutal, but hope you're having fun with it, and it's cool to see the work that we do continue to have legs after the conversations that we have.
Yeah. Thanks again, Anthony.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Again, thanks for listening to this episode. And now if you could go tell a friend or leave us a review and just to share this podcast, that would be great. And I'll see you back here next week. Thank you for listening to this episode of Substantiate. The best way to help support the show is to, number one, tell your friends about Substantiate. That is the number one way to support us. The second way is to leave us a 5-star review in Apple Podcasts or Podchaser. Number 3, follow us at Substantiate Pod on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
Hello, I'm Anthony.
And I'm Dr. Issues.
And we're hosts of Capes on the Couch, the podcast where comics get counseling.
Superheroes don't always get to go home happy. That's where we come in.
We offer psychiatric and mental health analysis of comic book characters.
So check us out at capesonthecouch.live and across all social media platforms at Capes on the Couch.